So, welcome, dude. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
You guys were talking over your mic. Welcome.
I know. But I can't even hear it. Dude, we're really excited to have you. We were talking before this about how we haven't really had any teenagers or like youth. Obviously you're 18, 19 now?
17 still.
17? Okay, wow.
When's your birthday?
January.
Okay, yeah. About to leave. He's about to leave on his mission. Joseph's going to Mongolia. January 19th, you said?
That's right.
Okay.
19th.
Good stuff,
awesome.
dude. When's the birthday?
27th.
Okay. Dang, how does that work?
I'm not allowed to say.
What does that even mean?
I can tell you after.
Okay.
Okay, dang.
Well, the mission aids just changed today for girls. Did you hear that?
I did.
18,
Pretty
they
crazy
can go
stuff.
18.
That is wild. So wild. So did you graduate high school early?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Just to start college.
Yep.
And get going. Cool, bro. Dang. What made you want to do that?
Initially, it was in my freshman year of high school. About halfway through, I was like, wonder if I can get done early. And the main driver was I wanted to be able to leave on my mission as soon as I turned 18. So initially, it was going to be one semester, and then I felt that I should do a whole year early.
Yeah.
And just a disclaimer, doesn't mean I'm super smart. At
No,
least
he is,
in my
guys.
school,
He's
in
very
my school
smart.
district, it's super easy to graduate early. I mean,
Yeah.
you just take a few extra online classes and you're good.
Yeah. No, I feel like I've heard of a lot of people doing that these days.
Graduating
Yeah.
early.
Yeah, graduating early, going on the
Smart,
mission
honestly.
as soon as you turn 18. Yeah. Dude, I have a little way just to kind of introduce you to the people. So one of Joseph's good friends wrote this up about him, just so people can get a sense of who you are. But as you were saying that you like graduated early, all this stuff, you just wanted to go on a mission. It kind of just goes along with some of the things that he says in here. You're just like a really motivated go-getter, I can tell. So anyways, this is what he says. He says, Joseph is a one-of-a-kind man. Kid does it all. Emphasis on kid, because you're young still. He's talented and charming. He's incredibly sharp and highly self-motivated. A hard worker. He gets things done and will accomplish a ton in his life. Hard not just to love this guy the second you get to know him. But honestly, the best parts of Joseph are the things you don't notice till you spend a lot of time with him. He's been blessed with a keen awareness for the emotions of those around him. He has an enormous heart and a beautiful desire to do that which is right. I've been able to witness so closely these last few months as he's deepened his relationship with God, and it's been an absolute blast to see Joseph's eyes light up with excitement as he began this journey of using his journey, his story, his experiences to help the lost sheep and to build Christ's kingdom. Joseph is a born leader. He has all the attributes needed to fit into any crowd, but also to stand firm in what he knows to be true. He has a strong mental compass. He will have many opportunities to lead during his lifetime. I love Joseph, man. He's someone others want to follow. He strengthened my testimony just by watching him seek to better himself and anyone that crosses paths with him, both physically, virtually. He relentlessly seeks after God. He has a genuine love for the Lord. Joseph is truly just a good person to his core. His trials and adversities have strengthened him a lot, and there are many ways things can play out when life gets difficult. When you have the Spirit in one ear and Satan in the other, I'm so freaking proud of the man Joseph is becoming. I'm so grateful for him and the impact he's had on me and everyone he's interacted with. Love this guy, and I know he will do amazing things in his life as he continues to rely on the atonement and love of Jesus Christ as he walks into these next chapters of life. Proud of you, Joseph. God's proud of you. Thanks for changing my life. And that's from your man, Drew.
Yeah. Thanks, Drew.
Yeah.
Yeah, we told him to write just a little something. That was like 7 paragraphs. I was watching Nate scroll. I'm like, whoa.
Drew's the man. Hopefully that also just paints a picture for people
Listening
to this from somebody that knows you better than we do. Talk about you. So anyways, we're excited, and hopefully everybody else excited to get to know you a little better on this. But I want you to kind of paint us a picture of what the gospel meant to you growing up and kind of the role that it played in your life and in your family's life as you were like a kid and kind of into the early teen years.
Yeah, so I mean, it was pretty much picture perfect, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, my mom traced her lineage back to the pioneers, and my dad was a first generation convert from Mongolia. And so they just both had these really strong reasons to be devoted to their faith.
Yeah.
And they always were, as long as I remembered, raised always going to church every Sunday, going to primary, you know, youth activities, like doing it all.
Yeah.
Everything, you know, they taught us well. We read scriptures every night, always did family evening. It was like, you know, your average, or I'd say even above average upbringing in
Yeah.
the Latter-day Saint church.
Yeah.
So it was pretty good. It was a really great way to be raised, and I'm really grateful for it. And what came with that was obviously I kind of adopted that kind of worldview from my parents just growing up, because I mean that's all you really know.
Yeah.
In belief system, yeah.
But it was definitely a really good way to live.
Yeah, for sure. Would you say that growing up that way, you had like strong convictions of your own about like Christ, about the church, about all that, or would you say that it was more of a like a borrowed light kind of thing?
Definitely more borrowed. I don't think I experienced my like own drive until I was 14, just out of middle school. I went to it was like a church summer youth camp.
Okay.
And after that, I was kind of like, oh, I want to do this for myself, sort of
Yeah.
thing. But up until then, it was all just, you know, just the way I was raised.
What was like special about the church camp? Was it like FSY?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, cool.
So it was just a really good experience overall. And then it just kind of made me realize how much I actually valued that upbringing and those beliefs. And I mean, it was simply just that, like a very purely spiritual experience that just kind of was like, oh, this is something that's good and something I want to keep up in my life.
Firsthand witness, people. You know, I feel like a lot of teenagers are like, I don't want to go to FSY. Like, I'm going to miss out on my summer. But it's like, you can have really cool experiences there. And I feel like when I was young, it used to be called EFY. And I had some like really powerful impressions and spirit-led promptings. So
I feel like that's the first time so many people feel the spirit. Is the FSY or EFY back in the day. Like singing the FSY medley. Bro, so good.
Well,
You're
or
just in
did
tears.
yeah, and you're just taken out of like your home environment where you're not pressured almost. Not that you're pressured in the first place, but like you're not pressured by anyone in your family, and you can just like feel and experience things for yourself, you know, with a lot of people that you don't know. So.
No, it's so true.
But after that, like, did your faith continue to grow, or what led you to start falling away almost?
So from that point, my freshman and sophomore years, it was like just an uphill climb. I mean, not an uphill climb. Things kept getting better from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
As in, like I really liked it. I was like, you know, locked in, so to speak.
Yeah.
I was just like totally in on it. And then, you know, I would go back to that youth camp every summer, and it would just kind of reignite that. Not that it totally had died out, but
Yeah.
you know, it was just like, man, this is great. This is good. Can't wait to go to BYU. Can't wait to serve a mission. All that kind of jazz. And then the falling away or the adversity started hitting about halfway through my junior year of high school.
Okay.
So just to clarify, I did 3 years of high school.
Okay.
So when I say junior year, I mean my second year, 2 out of 3 of high school.
Okay.
Okay.
So you had
So
no
when-
freshman year. You
when
had
you-
sophomore, junior, senior, right?
Yeah, when you say freshman and sophomore year.
Freshman
What were
and
those
sophomore year. So, sorry, I'm confusing everyone. My first semester of high school, I was a freshman. My second semester, I was a sophomore.
Got it. Okay.
Technically,
Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
that's how it is on paper.
Okay.
And then so my second full year, I was a junior.
So you're 15, 16?
When this started, I was 16.
Okay.
So halfway through my second year of high school, I turned 16 in January. And then how it started, you know, is how it starts for a lot of people. You see stuff on social media, right?
Yeah.
And then so I would just start getting all of these videos, mainly just short videos that would kind of push against what I thought was true, what I was devoted to and stuff. And then even if it was like in favor of my worldview, all the comments would be those same people just fighting against it, right? And then so it was like no matter where I turned, there was always just like a little voice in the corner like shouting just like, hey, this isn't true and here's why. And so at first I was like, it wasn't bad. I was just like, I already knew that stuff existed. Because I mean, raised in our church, you're just kind of like, you're told that exists, but it's all deception. You can kind of just ignore it, right? Seek the influence of the Spirit, that kind of stuff. So I was just doing my best to kind of, quell that.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it just keeps getting worse, just how the algorithms work.
Yeah.
So as soon as you get stopped by one or open the comment section, it tells that, hey, we should push more of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so it just kept kind of snowballing. And then eventually it became so much that it was starting to really bother me a lot. And because I'm just not the type of guy who can just have all these reasons that push against what I believe and still believe that thing. Like I have to, in order for me to be fully in it, it has to work not just here, but also in here.
Yeah.
For me.
Like logically, it has to make sense.
Yeah. And then so obviously it wasn't logically falling together according to what I was seeing.
Yeah.
And it's not like I was going deep into it, but every once in a while when I would hear things like someone saying, well, Joseph Smith didn't use the plates, he used a stone and a hat. I would go and search it up. I'm like, there's no way that's true. And I search it up and I'm like, wait, it is true.
It is true.
and then that was kind of like, oh, I don't even do I really even know what I've been saying I believe in for the last couple of years?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then so that would just kind of shake me. So I was like, all right, I came to a point where I needed to do something about this. I couldn't just keep sitting and trying to push it away. I was like, number one, I can try and just keep ignoring it, which obviously hasn't been working. Mm-hmm. And the other option in my head was that I can just kind of do a deep dive into what they were saying and if it held any water. Yeah. And I chose the latter. But I made the mistake of only looking into that one side that was so loud and not the side that, the faithful side. And then so from the time that I started, feeling shaken by those videos to the time where I was just in the deepest point where I was like, I can't believe this. It was about a 6-month period.
Okay.
And then
so it was 16 to 16 and a half.
Yeah. So it went into the summer and it got the worst during summer and the beginning of my senior year or that next fall. So I was like, now I was out looking for these things instead of it coming to me, whether it be podcasts, YouTube videos, books. I read, the most famous or renowned anti-Mormon literature, basically anything I could find, right? CES letter, all that crap. It was all, I was just like, I want to see and understand what they're saying, if it has any truth. And obviously, as in any case, not just religion related, if you look at one side and refuse to look at the other, you're going to be convinced of that one side you're looking at.
For sure. Yeah.
And that was especially in this case, more so than other scenarios, because the first thing they do is they say, your church has been lying to you. They've been hiding things. And everyone who believes it is brainwashed. That's what they tell you. And so you believe that. Yeah. And then they're like, there's no evidence for the Book of Mormon. There's Joseph Smith, he was just a sexually deranged con man. All that, they just tell you this and they say you can't listen to what they say. And obviously you listen to that enough and you believe it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't very inclined to go look at the other side because I'm like, well, I was raised in the church, so I should already know everything they want to tell me.
Yeah.
And
it's been telling you that the church is brainwashing you. So you're like, why would I go back to looking at these things that is brainwashing me?
I just didn't even think it existed.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no answers to this stuff because they were telling me that there's no answers to it.
Yeah.
And then so that's just kind of how it was. And my very lowest point came September, October-ish of last year, where I was just totally checked out. I was like, there's just no way this is true. I want it to be true so badly. I really did. And that was the rough part is, college applications were coming up. Do I go to a church school or do I not? Right. All this kind of stuff. And I'm like, this is the worst time to have this problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was just really rough. And I didn't tell my parents during this whole stretch until near the end. I didn't really tell anyone because I was like, this is my lot to carry. I just have to figure it out. I can't have someone tell me what to believe, even though that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
But, it didn't really click then.
How did you feel during that time?
Oh, it was pretty awful. Yeah. I don't really know how to describe it. I obviously haven't lived an incredibly long life
Yeah.
at this point, but at least from my life, that was my worst time that I remember
Really?
having. And for a couple months is when it was the worst, I'd say 2 to 3 months. And just kind of like give a picture, I worked as a lifeguard my senior year at an indoor pool. And I just remember during those couple months when I'm sitting on stand, I wouldn't really be paying attention to what was going on in the water. Hopefully, hopefully they don't. My boss doesn't see this or anything. I was like checked out. I was just staring blankly at it because through my mind, all the time, anytime I wasn't focused on something else, always, always, always just going through all the reasons why it wasn't true
Yeah.
and why I couldn't go back, wondering where I was going to go, what I was going to do, how I was going to tell my parents, all this kind of stuff.
Oh, it just consumed your whole mind.
All the time. And it was exhausting.
Yeah.
And then so it was just like totally wearing me down. Like it was hard to sleep at night. It was just really rough.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know where to go to seek help because it's not like, I did all I thought I could at that point. I had, read the church's gospel topics essays, which just didn't do it for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't rigorous enough for me.
Yeah.
In terms of pushing back against those claims. At that point, I had talked to my bishop. I just told him, I'm like, hey, I'm struggling about these things. I downplayed it a little,
Yeah.
but then he gives you the answer, the classic answer, which is just, you just need to pray about it. And
Yeah.
that spiritual witness will override all these problems.
Yeah.
And that's also what my parents told me because I was looking for like answers. I was saying, hey, there's this problem, give me an answer. I couldn't find that anywhere, at least not in any direct resource in terms of people I was close with.
Yeah.
And then, so I was like, okay, I'm going to try harder to get that spiritual witness because I thought that's the only way I could get it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so what I would do, during this whole stretch of time, especially near the end, every single night I would read my Book of Mormon and I would pray, or I would describe it as almost like a plea or begging for us, like just an overwhelming spiritual witness of its truth. So I'm like, okay, if I hear a voice, if I see if something happens, then I think it would be enough for me to just put all these things to rest and I can keep going.
Yeah.
And that's all I wanted. That's all I thought I needed. And then that never came during those months. And I would keep trying. I would go to do baptism at the temple almost every week during the roughest part.
Yeah.
Because I was just trying to do anything that would help me, like,
Yeah. So you're still doing the stuff.
I was doing everything.
And you were willing, like you had a willing heart.
Yeah, I wanted it to be true, like with every fiber of my being. But my mind, I was just like, it's not. And it was as simple as that.
Yeah.
And then so it was like an internal struggle where I was being pulled apart by two different things that I wanted to be true or that I thought were true. Yeah. I knew that I loved being in the church, the community it provided, all that kind of stuff. But I also knew it just wasn't true because of all of these reasons.
Yeah.
And so that's just kind of how it was. And it was just a rough time. I didn't know what to do. I was just pretty lost in terms of like, because that was my drive going up then, that was like my greatest identity was as a member of that religion, or at least within my little bubble of a worldview. That's what was true.
Yeah.
That was like my truth.
Well, and your whole future relied upon it. It was like, okay, I'm going to go on a mission. I'm going to go to BYU. I'm probably going to marry a girl in the temple.
Yeah.
Like the rest of your life relied upon you knowing and believing that was true.
And so I was like, eventually it came to the point where I had to face the fact that I needed to find something else to go to, because I still had that, I still believed in a higher power. And I would even go as far as to say I still believed in the kind of the Christian worldview in general.
Yeah.
And so starting October, I think I started visiting other churches, and I shifted my focus from the anti-Mormon stuff to looking into other branches of Christianity. And so, living in Dallas, I had a lot of opportunities to go visit other denominations.
Tons of
so I
different
did.
churches.
And and then so I was looking for stuff and couldn't find it. And then it was really bad. I was like, all right, what do I do?
Yeah, well, none of it's true.
And then I'm trying to remember what it was. So at this point, I had told my parents, right? And then they bought this book. I presume off of a prompting, but it was Tad Collister's A Case for the Book of Mormon. You know, pretty popular book, at least in this space.
Yeah.
And then so I read it, and then I remember I was just like, what? Because this whole time I was thinking, I'm like, there's nothing. There is no evidence for the Book of Mormon, like at all. There's nothing that would even point to any kind of ancient connection or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then in this book, he just had like straight, cold, hard facts,
Yeah.
like from linguistic analysis, like all this stuff. And I'm like, what?
Where's this been?
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, dude, this is what I've been looking for.
Yeah. Finally, like a logical reason to believe.
And then I remember I would take it to work with me and just read it on my breaks. And then I remember any time I'd pick it up and read it for the first time, like in months, I would just have this feeling of like being at rest, like in my mind as well as like my heart.
Yeah.
Because this was like, it made sense. It was making sense now. And I was just like, wow, this is great. And then so after that, I was like, there's more of this, right? There's got to be more of this.
There's got to be more.
And then so I started looking into the other side. And then that's where I went. So I did that whole deep dive of anti-Mormonism, and now I started off this deep dive of pro-Mormonism.
Yeah.
Right? And then so same thing. Listen to the podcast, watch the videos, read the books, read the journals, like online art, like all this stuff. Everything that I could find, I just consumed. And now I had an equal picture. You know, both sides of the scale were balanced out. I still was able to make a choice. And obviously the choice I made, the choice I'd always been trying to make, was that it was true.
Yeah.
But now I could do it in a way that didn't conflict with my mind and stuff. So now my whole being was united in the fact that this was the truth.
Yeah.
And because there was nothing holding me back, then it was just like bliss, you know? I still remember the first time in months I was able to read from the Book of Mormon and just not question every single word I was reading. You know, because that whole time I was like, this can't be true. Like, none of this is real. And the first time I was able to read it and then just be like, this is divinely inspired.
Yeah.
And then that's where all those spiritual witnesses I was wanting were coming. Because now my mind wasn't blocking that.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of just in short what happened.
Yeah.
And by the time that I was just like very solid, I would place that around January or February.
Yeah.
So a few months after that lowest point. So overall, about 9 months, I'd say.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The big spiritual wrestle. What would you say, like, how do you feel like people should balance logic and faith?
Well, how I like to think of it is I honestly don't like how a lot of times in conversation, those two things are pitted against each other. And I am a huge advocate that those things are meant to, and in a lot of cases, work together to build faith.
Agreed.
Obviously not for everyone. Everyone works differently in terms of how much logic goes into those kinds of decisions.
For sure.
But for me, and for anyone who really struggles with this whole battle between anti-Mormon apologetics and pro-Mormon apologetics, we're given the ability to reason and ration as a gift from God, right? And that's not even, I wouldn't even say that's created by God. That's one of the inherent values within our eternal being,
Yeah.
is the ability to think and choose for ourselves. And so don't be afraid to, I would say to anyone, to use that to your advantage. Just do it the right way, right? You got to look at both sides as in any case, you know, don't be an attorney, be a judge in terms of don't just like be like, oh, I'm just trying to push this one single narrative. Doesn't matter what anyone else says. Be the person that looks at all the different things equally without bias, or at least as much as you can,
Yeah.
and make a choice.
Right.
And then obviously let the Spirit guide you in that decision. But we have many scriptural examples of you have to study it out first, then make a choice, and then the Spirit will confirm. And I'm a sucker for the whole worldview that God can't create anything from nothing, not just in a metaphysical sense of that God didn't create the earth from nothing, but in the sense that God, or in this case, God, the Holy Spirit, can't create faith out of nothing or knowledge out of nothing. In my view, or at least how I've experienced, the Holy Spirit does two things. Number one, it testifies of truth as you come across it. And two, it brings things to your remembrance. I don't think it, at least not in my experience, it doesn't create knowledge out of nothing. So you can't expect it to tell you that the Book of Mormon is true if, number one, you haven't read it, and number two, you haven't studied what would make it true, at least to balance out what you have studied that it would make it not true, so to speak. Sure. And so I would just say those two things, they work together and they're meant to work together. You know, William Shakespeare, one of the quote he said is, "Knowledge is the wing wherewith we fly to heaven." And that's in our scriptures too. D&C 93 says that knowledge, or the knowledge of light and truth, or intelligence, is the glory of God. And we can receive a fullness of that, to be like God. And then Doctrine and Covenants, section 130, says that any principle of knowledge or intelligence we attain in this life, we bring with us to the next. And anyone who has more will be better off than another who doesn't. And so I think it's really important to not pit those things against each other as many times they are, whether consciously or subconsciously.
Yeah.
I think when they work together beautifully.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that. Well, so and one doesn't override the other. It's like faith isn't more important than logic, and logic isn't more important than faith. But at the same time, I'm a very logical thinker like you. And so oftentimes a lot of like my friends that weren't part of the church, they'd be like, "You're so logical. Like, how do you believe in this thing?" And I'm like, that's the thing, is the experiences that I had with the Spirit are personal, and I can't explain that other than like logic can't like deter me away from those things. And nobody can tell me that I didn't feel them because it was real, you know, and it's personal. And that's why I love the Spirit so much, and the fact that we focus on seeking out the Spirit, because he is the person that testifies of truth. No one else, no other voice, no other opinion can be contrary to that, because you've received your own witness by the power of God. And it's like, that's where God power shines through against all logic and things like that. It's like, it can't be explained by logic. It's like, I can't explain how I felt the Spirit, you know? Yeah. And it's so different for everyone too, which is why it's so beautiful. And that's why we each try and like obtain our own personal relationship with God. So
true.
Amen.
Well, and it's, I feel like just how you felt during that time when you were reading all the anti-Mormon literature and all of that different, watching all the different reels and podcasts where people are just bashing on the church. Like, you just didn't feel good. And anytime I've ever like watched that, like, I don't feel good. Like, it's a hard place for the Spirit to be. Which I think more than anything, more than like the actual evidence, that feeling is evidence within itself, you know, of like, I don't feel good. I feel crappy while reading this, while listening to this. And then when I'm on the pursuit to find truth in the Book of Mormon or in these books that are divinely inspired, like, as I'm reading that, I feel good. I feel the Spirit. I feel peace. Like you said, you just felt bliss, like for the first time in 6 months. And it's like, that I feel like is evidence more than anything, more than any like archaeological evidence of the Book of Mormon. Just that feeling is God saying, hey, like, this is right. This is true. This is what I want you to keep leaning into versus the other one.
Yeah. And I mean, the obvious pushback to that from any critic would be, that's just belief bias, right?
Yeah.
And then that is actually initially what I attributed that to. I was like, even though logically and according to the historical record, all this stuff, I think that this very well could be true, I still was like, I think that feeling was just belief bias. I was scared that I was wrong and that I didn't know what else to turn to.
Yeah.
And I say to an extent that was true.
Yeah.
And you should be careful to be wary of that. But as you guys know now, I went through a period of about 6 months in which I was like, okay, I've settled all of my problems and I can just bask in the wonderful glory of this gospel, right? And just
Yeah.
not look back, just be focused on what I know to be true. And then I made the decision to engage back in that conversation through social media, obviously on the other side of things.
Yeah.
But I made that decision. I'm like, I'm going to jump back into it. And what came with that, I was back on anti-Mormon Instagram, back on anti-Mormon social media, like looking at all these things, right? And then the one thing I noticed is that same feeling of just darkness, of despair, of discomfort was still there. Even though every single thing I saw, like within 30 seconds, I could just absolutely refute it
Yeah.
from memory. Like
Yeah.
I knew that none of what they were saying was true, but I still had that feeling.
Yeah.
And then so that right there, it clicked to me. I'm like, yeah, that was just the absence of the Spirit.
Yeah.
And then I think that is important to realize too, is there's multiple things in play. Yes, I do think belief bias or confirmation bias does play a part in some of those feelings, but like from my own experience, as I just said, the opposite is true, that it's not just that. There's something else too. Especially as you seek to have that influence of the Spirit, you'll notice that change.
Yeah. And he'll guide you in your earnest journey to find those answers. It will be guided.
So what about the people that like were in and are in your position of like they are coming across some of these videos and they feel like they're in that kind of faith crisis? What do you say to them as far as like what they can do to help their situation?
What I would say to anyone is that don't ignore it. If it's a problem for you, don't ignore it. Face your problem. But do it in a right way. The problem was never that there's not answers.
Yeah.
There's always been answers to every single thing that's come up against the church since the beginning, or at least in due time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I can't think of really one anti-Mormon problem that I can't answer. Like, you throw anything at me, I can at least sufficient enough for me, who, by the way, is a very logically inclined person, to say, hey, like, given this and given the possible answers or responses, I can still believe this.
Yeah.
Every single thing. And I've seen pretty much all of it. Like, I've been to the deep ends of anti-Mormonism. Like, I like to tell these people who come up in my DMs or comments, I'm like, I could probably be a better anti-Mormon than you. And so it's like, but it's all there is my point, but it's just hard to find it. That was my problem. My problem was always, I didn't know where to go to find these sources. So, and that's part of why I do what I do. These sources, people need to know where to find them. I'm not saying everyone should, from early ages, like look into all these apologetic stuff. I think it's just important that people know where to find it. Like what websites, what books, what people, all that kind of stuff. And so anyone who's going through that, I would just say, you know where to go, right? And then I can, like, there's a bunch of great sources, but what I would say, just general advice, is don't be afraid to look into things. Obviously, seek the influence of the Spirit and be humble.
Yeah.
Number one, be humble for any scenario. You just can't be like, it's just so detrimental either way. I think you can't be like, oh, all these anti-Mormons, they're right, and I'm not willing to hear the other side. In the same way, you can't be like, I'm not willing to listen to what the critics have to say because I just want to protect my peace.
Because questioning does evolve to this growth in your testimony. So it's like, don't suppress those, because those are just going to build and eventually probably make you turn away. But I think it's crazy too. Like, I read this wow, I cannot speak right now. Hi.
The craziest.
I read the craziest thing the other day, and it kind of was just talking about how faith obviously is not a perfect knowledge. And at some point or another, like, we all like have periods of doubt, I guess. But I've always struggled with the word doubt, because we hear so much in the scriptures and it's repeated so many times, like doubt not, fear not, like do not doubt, like all this type of stuff. And so I read this thing that said, modern English equates questioning with doubt. But in scriptural language, doubt implies a turning away from covenants until concerns are resolved. The problem with doubt is the implicit intent to obey only after the uncertainty is resolved to the satisfaction of the doubter. This is like the attitude personified in Korihor and Alma, who said, if thou wilt show me a sign, then I will be convinced of the truth. That type of example. The doubter's posture is to withhold obedience until they have found an answer or a resolution. But like, why in the world would we turn away from the one person who can give us answers? You know, like I bet in the periods where you were doubting or like questioning, and then you were like, okay, let me like dive deep into this one side. And then God was like, wait, like, hold on. Like, I'm so willing and ready to answer these questions with you. But doubt implied a turning away from God when God is the only one who can give you the sure truth and the answers. And so I just love that, because I just imagine God being up there being like, oh my gosh, like, you have these questions and I'm your father and I'm so willing to answer them with you and work through it together. But like, don't leave me and don't stop praying and don't stop reading your scriptures and doing all these things just because you got to go explore this other side, and like stop doing the truths and the principles and everything that you've grown up to learn. And then the final thing that it said was, distancing yourself from the kingdom of God during a trial of faith is like leaving the safety of a secure storm cellar just as the tornado comes into view. And so like when God says doubt not, fear not, like that's him being like, hey, like let's work this out together. Like seriously, don't doubt, don't turn away from me. We can do it together and figure it out. And so that's the one thing too that your story really exemplifies, is like, yeah, you dove deep into this one side and it was a dark time for you, but you had that willingness in your heart and you really were trying to figure out the truth and you wanted it to be true so bad. And so you clung to God, and God eventually ended up answering you, and you have the conviction and the faith that you do now, which is very noble. And honestly, like, you're very pristine in your education and you know these topics very well, and it's cool to see the path that you're taking with your podcast. And so just know that he's up there very proud of the person you're becoming and the people that you're touching, because you really are in the good fight with him. So that was my fun thought.
I love that. I talking about that talk, Stand Forever, it just reminded me too that, I mean, if you haven't heard the talk, he simply just says you have primary questions and you have secondary questions, basically. And it's like, don't go looking for the answer of all these secondary questions until you answer the primary questions first, which is like you said, does God love me? Like, is he real? Does he love me? Do I love him? Is Jesus the Christ or not? Did Joseph Smith see God the Father and Jesus Christ? And is the Book of Mormon true? Like, if you can answer those, then all the other questions can either be answered or they, like, I think the word he uses, like, they will pale in comparison to the answer to those primary questions.
Yeah.
And it also just made me think about my personal experiences, like on my mission, and you'll see this on yours. I think the most sacred moments were the moments where, like, I heard somebody pray for the first time, or I got to look somebody in the eye and tell them that God loves them, and I could see them understanding and believing that. And like that changed people, and those moments changed me. And those are the most powerful, impactful moments of my mission in my life, is helping people understand those primary questions. And yeah, it was cool to like do research and find answers to these like really niche questions that people had. But answering those questions never came with the same fulfillment as answering those primary questions for people. And so I would just say, and this is like for parents helping out your kids, or for like youth, teenagers, young adults, if you have questions, if you're coming across things, like really seek the answers to those primary questions first. Like figure out first and foremost, like, is God real and does he love you? And like, I promise that will change your life more than knowing any of these like small, seemingly insignificant questions compared to that question. You're like, figure that out, and I promise that'll change your eternity.
Yeah.
And then it makes it 10 times easier to go about answering the other questions, because you'll be doing it not out of doubt, but out of curiosity with God, you know? Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah. Good luck on the mission.
Oh, thank you.
You're going to kill it, dude. I'm excited for you.